Okay.
Hi, I'm Russ Barlow with True Seekers Foundation.
And I'm Rod Meldrum, the Book of Mormon evidence guy.
And you might wonder why in the world the Book of Mormon guy is here at the Ark Encounter. Now, for me, this is easy. This is like the capstone of our tour, and it's the end of our tour. But why in the world are you here?
Well, because the Book of Mormon actually does testify of Noah's Ark, and I actually had the opportunity to work with the Universal Model for a number of years, and got to know of the mechanisms and what would actually cause the universal flood, and some of the evidences for it.
And actually, all truth is connected. And this is the Promised Land. And the Ark was built on the Promised Land, and it left, and then people came back to the Promised Land, and so I think they're inseparably connected.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, maybe just a little bit more about the being built on the Promised Land part, because we know that Adam and Eve, when they were in the Garden of Eden, it said that the first original Promised Land was named after Adam's great-grandson, whose name was Canaan. And where was this Canaan? Well, we actually know from Doctrine and Covenants, section 107, that Adam gathered all of his righteous posterity together. We know where the Garden of Eden was, is in essentially the heartland of America.
Right.
And he gathered all of his righteous posterity together just 3 years before his death. So he was 927 years old when he gathered them together. Yeah. And this was the land where his great grandson Canaan was living at the time. And this Promised Land was named after him.
That's right. And another great grandson was Enoch, and Enoch was actually shown this incredible ark behind us. He was shown. He knew how it was done. He was given a promise that it would be his posterity that would do that. It would be his great grandson Noah who would build the ark behind us. Well, yeah. This is a replica, kind of like the Phoenicians replica, right?
Yeah, exactly.
This is a life-size replica of the ark, and it's built where? In the Promised Land.
Yeah. Well, and this has been a Promised Land ever since the very beginning of time with the Garden of Eden there. We've had the opportunity after the Book of Mormon actually talks about when the Jaredites came here. In the Jaredite record in Ether, it says that after the floodwaters receded from off the face of this land, it again became a Promised Land. And then the Jaredites came, they lived their lives, and they ended up destroying each other from civil war. Then a little bit after that was the Nephites, and then they came and they destroyed themselves with civil war. Now we have the Gentiles who are here on this Promised Land, and I'm just wondering if they might have a similar kind of effect. But the Lord said that he would never again flood the earth. He would never destroy the earth by flood again. And he gave a beautiful sign in the heavens, which has been kind of co-opted by other forces, if you will, but the beautiful rainbow. And that was a sign of God's covenant with mankind that would never occur again.
There's actually two parts to that covenant, and one of them we learn about because in Joseph Smith's translation in chapter 7 in Genesis, and then again in chapter 9, where he brings this whole covenant with Enoch full circle, where he says, in the latter days, that's us right now, when people keep all of his commandments and they become united together, that Zion would come again on the earth. And so the rainbow is the signifier of that event, that he's going to put the bow in the heavens, so that he, when he looks upon it, he says, I will remember the covenant that I made with you and your father, Enoch.
Yeah, yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about the man Noah. Sometimes because of our cultural bias, we've got this idea that people in the old times were cavemen, or maybe even we think, well, how did Adam learn how to ride, or did he really know a lot? The fact is, Noah was an engineer. Noah was an incredibly talented person who I'm sure had all kinds of skill, and we know that he
very resourceful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is he brought all of that knowledge with him across the waters. Think about there are 3 times that are specifically in the scriptures that it talks about an ark. The first time that we read about it is the ark that Moses is on when he's saved by an ark. It's the smallest ark. And then you have the Ark of the Covenant that God makes with the people and they're traveling through. But then Moses is actually told about the story of Noah. So God tells him the story of Noah and the biggest ark of all. And all 3 of those arks point to one final ark, and that is the Savior, who is the ark today of our covenant, of our salvation.
I think that's why they call it the archetype, in fact.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Nephi was an archetype of Christ.
Yeah.
And Noah was an archetype of Christ. Now, Noah was also told, Joseph Smith tells us that Noah stands next to Adam. So Adam comes to this earth and starts the whole of humanity, and then Noah stands next to him and restarts humanity. And we know that he's the angel Gabriel, and the angel Gabriel that was Noah, is the one who actually appears to Mary and gives her the message that to her is going to be born the Savior of the world.
Yeah.
So Noah is an incredibly important person to know about.
Exactly. A lot of people, we do Book of Mormon evidence, and so what kind of evidences are there for Noah's flood? And one of the things that a lot of people have had major misgivings about. In fact, LDS Living Magazine, a couple of years ago, had an article and they talked about the 5 answers to hard questions about the Noah's flood myth. Actually, call it a myth. Many people think, how is it possible? How do you get enough water to flood the entire Earth? And the answers to that actually came as we did the research on the universal model. And the bottom line is that if the Earth is primarily a water planet, or one of the major parts of the Earth is a water planet, then what you have is these tiny little thin crusts. We call the crust of the Earth, are about the thickness of a piece of paper on a basketball-sized Earth.
Yep.
And that crust is being held in equilibrium between 2 primary forces. We have gravity, which is trying to pull those crusts in towards the center of the Earth. But just like if you have a rock on a string, centrifugal force, because the Earth is spinning, centrifugal force is going to move the things to the outside. Those 2 forces are in a perfect equilibrium with each other. And all it would take is for the Earth's rotation rate to be slowed down by just a little bit. I think it was about 5 minutes is what was figured, about 5 minutes. If the Earth's day was 24 hours and 5 minutes long, the Earth's rotation rate would slow down. And when you slow down the rotation, then gravity would actually overcome centrifugal force. Centrifugal force would be reduced, and then those crusts would actually move in. And it only has to move in just a little bit on an 8,000-mile wide Earth, just a little tiny bit, and whatever's on the inside is now going to go on the outside.
So
It rained for 40 days and 40 nights as the sign that the flood was going to happen, but the rain is not what caused the flood.
Think of it this way. When, like you said, the gravitational force remained the same, but centrifugal force was reduced because of that spin rate, right?
Right.
So you have this paper-thin crust on our basketball-sized Earth. That paper-thin crust on our real Earth is about 120,000 feet average, okay? So when that cracked and it sunk, it only had to sink a third of the thickness of that piece of paper on our basketball-sized Earth to be under 30,000 feet of water.
Mount Everest is, by the way, 29,900 something feet. So it would literally have covered all the high mountains and all the high hills, as the Bible says.
Even if Mount Everest wasn't there,
right?
We know the depth from a different point of view. We know the depth because of the processes that happened at the bottom of that flood.
So it's not like the water came from the sky and landed on the continental crust and then built up to 30,000 feet. The crust literally sank into the Earth 30,000 feet.
That's right.
And then the water came out from underneath the crust over the top of it. And all you got to do is just Google water under the Earth. I mean, there's hundreds of articles now that talk about many, many oceans worth of water underneath the Earth crusts. And then as those crusts come in, then the water comes out, and what it says specifically in the Holy Scriptures basically is that it rained for 40 days and 40 nights, and then he says, and then the fountains of, hold on, let me finish this. Okay. The fountains of the great deep were broken up, and that's what actually caused the real flood part.
So what it actually says is the reverse. Everybody misses the first part because it says the fountains of the great deep burst, and the windows of heaven were opened, and rain was upon the earth for 40 days and 40 nights. Now, that's important to understand because what caused the rain in the first place? The fountains actually spewed all this water out and all this debris, which acted as nucleations for the rain that was in the atmosphere. So the 40 days of continuous rain, which is impossible today, happened because the water is being spewed out. It's hot water, and this now hot atmosphere, the earth has warmed all of a sudden really quickly. And so it causes this massive precipitation cycle because the fountains broke first. And then the rain started, and that continued for 40 days before it finally settled down. But the floodwaters kept flowing for 150 days.
The other thing is that it hadn't rained on the earth prior to Noah's flood. So they said there was a mist that would come up out of the ground basically and water the earth, but it never had actually rained physical rain until this event happened.
And that it was the cracking of the crust, the friction generated in that cracking, that caused this stuff to be spewed. And I have to think of, we think of as little steam like a geyser. We're talking Mount St. Helens type geysers or Mount Pinatubo, which is 60, 70, 80, 90,000 feet in the air
Yeah.
of water vapor and dust. And it spreads around the whole earth very quickly because there's thousands of these.
Yeah.
And that's actually starts that cycle that's impossible to even imagine. And inside the ark, for 40 days, the ark had to be closed. And the book of Jasher says that they were tossed about like pottage inside.
Mhm.
Think of the fear. You had to have absolute faith that God was going to deliver you, because for 40 days, you had no idea what was going on outside. And the roar, it says there was the lowing and the roar of the animals inside as they were afraid too.
Mm-hmm.
Think about 40 days being tossed and heaved,
Yeah,
and tossed about like.
well, think
like
of a
salad.
think of a 30-foot wave. What it would do to a yacht, for example.
Yeah.
Now think of a 300-foot wave.
Right.
Now think of a 3,000-foot wave, and now think of a 30,000-foot wave. This is I mean, this is I mean, unbelievable. But literally toss a huge ship like this, just toss it around. It would be pretty amazing because of the weight of it. That's the one thing that would be very, very instrumental and helpful. The weight of it would help to stabilize it, but some of those waves would crash almost even over the top of it. I mean, yeah,
Today modern
a
ship
300-foot wave would go over this several times over.
for sure. And
Luckily, it buoys up though
what's
with
kind
the
of
waves.
interesting is that modern shipbuilding, when they build the oil tankers and they build these other ships, they actually build them in a form similar to the Ark. They actually have similar proportions of the way they do because they're stable and they don't break apart.
Yeah.
So it wasn't Noah that came up with this plan. God told him how to build the ark. He gave him the size and the dimensions.
Mhm.
Now, this is another thing that we have to realize. God is an eternal God. Is this earth the only time that a flood happened? Is this earth the only time that an ark was built?
Yeah.
No, not at all. This is a process. This is a part of the creation process that started with the creation of the earth. And God knew there would be a span of time and this event would happen, because it happens all the time on every earth.
In fact, it would need to happen because although the Ark is considered one of the greatest destructive events in world history, because of all the destruction, because of all the upheaval, because of all the movement of the sediments and things around the earth, it actually ends up becoming one of the greatest creative events on the planet. A lot of things were not here prior to the flood.
Things like coal and oil and salt and ore. And that might sound kind of crazy, but the fact is that each of those are marks of the flood, and they happen all at the same time.
All over the world.
All over the world.
Yeah.
So every continent has these things. We see petrified wood in every continent. So these things, and I think petrified wood is interesting.
It really is fascinating.
We use coal, and we use oil, and we use salt. We use all those things. But what do we use petrified wood for? Really, nothing except being pretty, right? And so you look at a piece of Arizona petrified wood, it has all the colors of the rainbow. It's as if God said, I'm going to give you one more thing. I'm going to give you the rainbow in rock that you can put on your mantle so that you can remember the covenant that I made with you as well.
Yeah. In the universal model, we actually had the opportunity to learn more when it comes down to dinosaurs and how those when did the dinosaurs live? That's one of the biggest questions that people always have. Did the dinosaurs come from a previous earth, and did God use basically leftovers from that earth to make this earth? And the answer to that is actually geologically, there's no way that would have even worked.
Here's a spiritual reason why.
Yeah.
Because the earth was perfect. And how could the earth be perfect?
There was no life on the earth prior to.
There were taking parts of an earth that failed. This is a perfect earth, made out of perfect materials.
Yeah. So the dinosaurs and petrified wood are interesting because they're both carbon-based life forms, whether it's a tree or a dinosaur, but those life forms have to be turned into a rock in order to make it a petrified wood or petrified dinosaur bone. And it turns out it's the same system that does both of them. And the only time when you have the ingredients, which is hot water, heat, and pressure,
and the silica load that comes from the inside the earth.
The only time that all those things would come together simultaneously is during Noah's flood time.
That's right. So there are tiny areas on the earth that we're still seeing chalcedony and pyrite and things made, and deep in the ocean.
Yeah.
But there was one time where the entire surface of the earth was conducive to those environments where petrified wood and Well, all the stuff that we just mentioned
Yeah,
can be formed.
the only place we find that actually happening today, where is petrification? Where is that actually happening today? And the only place
In
is
your lab.
basically, well, in the lab, but also at the bottom of like the Marianas Trench in hydrothermal vent systems. They call them white smokers or black smokers, depending on the hot water that's coming up out of there. But it has to be about 30,000 feet of water
To create
to create
13,000 psi.
which is the temperature or the pressure that you have to have, along with heat, to have something that is a carbon-based life form actually be replaced with silicon dioxide, which is basically quartz.
And that silica has to be coming, so that those smokers are actually pumping out a
That's why they're white
solution.
silica
And
solution.
they know that because they say these life forms down there, they're confused because they're living, and they call them chemotrophs, which means instead of living on stuff that's carbon-based, they're living on a silica-based, they think. Okay, so they can see all the parts and pieces, but they can't see the whole picture.
Yeah.
This is the environment that all these things happen.
Well, Ross, to wrap this thing up, so one of the things that's just hit me as we've been here at the Ark Encounter here in Kentucky is just the sheer magnitude of what Noah accomplished.
Right.
You know, when you think about it, it would have been an impossible task to try to gather animals from everywhere on the earth and have them come. Having God actually direct them here so they arrive here and he could do that. The other thing I love to bring out is the fact that Noah, after the ark was finished and his family was in, they opened the door to everyone.
For 7 days, the ark door lay
anyone
open.
could come, and yet no one did. And let that be a lesson in our lives. When we have the invitation to come to be rescued, if you will, from the fall, when we have an invitation to come to the temples, when we have the invitation to participate in our meetings and things, don't hesitate. Get on board. Don't miss the boat.
Don't miss the ark. The other thing
Yeah.
that's really important to understand is that we live in a culture where the gospel, like the creation and the flood, have become fictionalized, where it's just some kind of a mystery, and that's a bad thing that we've done that.
Yeah.
We need to actually bring it to the point where you can have confidence in the scriptures. You know that they're true, that they actually speak of an actual Adam and Eve, that they actually speak of a fall and a flood, an atonement and a restoration.
Mm-hmm.
These are the things that are real. And you know what? Look for the opportunity to someday, we're going to have a creation museum, and it's going to be something that's available to everybody among our group of our friends in Utah and other places, that you can come and see the restoration and the flood and the creation as part of a whole. I don't know when that's going to happen, but it's going to happen.
Well, we're excited about that. So listen, thank you everybody for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe here. Just hit the button down below. If you like these little excerpts and so forth and this information, please don't forget to like us and to subscribe. We are excited about sharing this information with you and hope that this is something to bless your life.
Yep, and bookofmormonevidence.org, right? And
bookofmormonevidence.org.
and trueseekersfoundation.com. We love you guys. We'll see you.